welcome everyone. I hope you all are doing good. Alright, so let's just begin. So in my previous class, we had started with the main idea type of questions, right? And main idea क्या होता है? Main idea के क्या essentials होते हैं? क्या कुछ main idea में हमें check करना होता है? How to mark down the important points, how to jot down the important options, right? How to make sure that we are answering the correct thing we have to understand, and also we have to see why the wrong answer is wrong, right? All these things we've already done. Apart from this, in my previous class मैंने आपसे questions discuss करे थे सबके साथ, right? And also I gave you a homework wherein I asked you guys to solve a few questions and also to answer the meanings of a few words, right? So this was a brief recap, I believe. चलो, so आज की क्लास में we'll continue doing the questions, right? And we will see what kind of questions have been there in the previous years. Yes, we'll be solving a few previous year questions. So let's just begin. So starting with what is main idea, we all know it is the central idea or the main point that the author is trying to explain in the passage, right? Or the purpose of the passage is also the main idea of the passage. It is repeated again and again, right? So let's just start. So passage 1, from a very early age, I knew that when I grew up, I should be a writer. I had the lonely child's habit of making up stories and holding conversations with imaginary persons. And I think from the very start, my literary ambitions were mixed up with the feeling of being isolated and undervalued. I knew that I had a facility with words and a power of facing unpleasant facts, and I felt that this created a sort of private world in which I could get my own back for my failure in everyday life. I wanted to write enormous naturalistic novels with unhappy endings, full of details, descriptions, and arresting similes. I'm so sorry I read it as similes. As smiles, right? And arresting similes, and also full of purple passages in which words were used partly for the sake of their sounds. I give all this background information because I do not think one can assess a writer's motives without knowing something of his early development. Right? So here, somewhat or the other, we get to know this is a piece of information or a piece of writing from the author's own life, right? This is what we got to know here, and we get to know that he's trying to give us the reasons of why he started writing or how well did he start writing and what was the reason behind it, right? So his subject matter will be determined by the age he lives in. Now who is he here? Who is his here? Who is his here? See, I give all this background information because I do not think one can assess a writer's motive without knowing something of his early development. So here we are talking about writers in general, that is why we have used his, right? So his subject matter will be determined by the age he lives in. At least this is true in tumultuous revolutionary ages like our own. But before he ever begins to write, he will have acquired an emotional attitude from which he will never completely escape. It is his job to discipline his temperament, but if he escapes from his early influences altogether, he will have killed his impulse to write. I think there are 4 great motives for writing. Any rate of writing prose, right? They are sheer egoism, wherein desire to seem clever, to be talked about, to be remembered after death, to get your own back on growing up, who snubbed you in the childhood, right? Next, second is aesthetic enthusiasm, right? So desire to share an experience which one feels is valuable and ought not to be missed. Next, a historical impulse. Desire to see things as they are, to find out true facts and store them up for the use of posterity, right? Then, political purpose, desire to push the world in a certain direction, to alter other person's ideal of the kind of society that they should strive after. Right? Here I am underlining two words, I am highlighting two words. I want you guys to write down the meaning of tumultuous and posterity in the chat box. Right? This is what I want you to do. Now, moving ahead to the question. So here, after reading the passage, alright, I'll give you a minute. Quickly read the passage, quickly go through the passage and take a screenshot. Alright, so I believe you have already taken a screenshot. Take a screenshot of this as well if you want to read slowly. Right? Read it at your own pace, I'm okay with that. Right? So now, as I've already asked you guys to write down the meaning of these words, I'm just giving you a hint here. Tumultuous would mean something, let's say something which is haphazardly placed or something which is confusing. Maybe. I'm just giving you a hint here. It is somewhat related to it. And posterity has something to do with the word post. Post means after. Right? I'm just giving you hints here. Right? Now, as we have already read, here the author is trying to analyze that why do the writers write and what is the impulse behind their writings. Right? This is what the passage basically talks about. Now let us see what are the questions here. So the first one for the author, aesthetic enthusiasm is an important motive for writing because it, let's just see where it is talking about. So the second point talks about aesthetic enthusiasm, desire to share an experience which one feels is valuable and ought not be missed. So what is it here? Because the author feels what? Because it shapes the thought, creates an artistic piece, becomes invaluable or non-utilitarian. What should be the answer? Think of it. Take a screenshot if you want to. Okay, so here clearly in this passage he has clearly mentioned that just because he believes that such a thought might go missed, right, or there might be a situation wherein such a valuable incident might be missed. Hence, he wants to make sure that the author wants to make sure that such a valuable incident doesn't go invaluable. That is why he writes about it. Right? Hence, the answer should be becomes invaluable. Now, the second one, the author strongly advocates the writers to do what? So here, this question is basically related to the author's main argument. Right? So what does the author strongly advocate the writers to do? Think. Take a look at it. What does he want the writers to do? Chalo, let's just see. So avoid any egoistic impression in their work. Be political in their approach. Be contemporary in their treatment of their work. And none of the above. So are we talking about the authors being egoistic? Are we talking about authors being politically biased? Are we talking about the authors giving a contemporary treatment to their work? Are we talking about all this? I don't believe we are doing that, right? So the answer would be none of these, because nowhere have we talked about all these things, right, in the passage. Now, which of the following is a synonym of the word tumultuous? That is why I gave you this word to let me know the meaning of. Think about it. What will be the answer? Chaotic, turbulent, disorderly. What will it be? Because talking about the meaning of the word, we have no idea about the word. Let's say we don't have any idea about the word. And I said that it is somewhat related to confused. Now, chaotic is also somewhat the same, turbulent is also somewhat the same, and disorderly is also somewhat the same. So what should be the answer? I am giving the answer is all of these. Right? Because all of these are somewhat or the other negative words, and so is tumultuous, which means that something is disorderly placed, or something is chaotic, something is turbulent. Right? Now, moving ahead to the next one. George Orwell's loneliness during childhood led to what? Estrangement with his father, unhappy days, making up stories, or unpleasant incidents. What will be the answer, and why are we talking about George Orwell? Think about it. Take a minute. Okay, so I am giving an example here. Let's say the passage, we don't know what the passage is about or from where have we taken. right? So who is I here is unclear to all of us. But we know one thing, that here they have written that I had the lonely child's habit of making up stories, right, and holding conversations with imaginary people. Let's just see here. The answer should be unhappy days, estrangement with his father, or making up stories or unpleasant incidents. The answer will be making up stories, because here I, the writer, is George Orwell, right? I hope that is clear to everyone. Now, why does Orwell give background information? Why do you think that it is important to give background information? Take a look at the question, read the options. Okay, so here the options are saying he had the lonely child's habit, but habit was to make up stories, right? Second, it is essential to know about motives of the writers. Then, because of his historic impulse. And last one is due to the aesthetic enthusiasm. This is just one part of the answer. So this won't be the answer, right? This is just one part of the explanations given, right? So is historic impulse. Now, this is not what the question is talking about. Here we are talking about why does Orwell give his own introduction or his own background, right? So here the answer will be because it is essential to know about the motive of the writers. And so by his example, he is trying to just start a foundation wherein he is telling that this is why it is important to know the motives of the background of the writer, right? Then, if writer escapes from early impulses, he will do what? It is a direct fact-based question, right? Now let's just see what he says. Okay, let's just see. So, where has he talked about him escaping such desires or such things? See, where are we talking about escapism? Where are we talking about escapism? Are you seeing the word escape? Anywhere do we see the word escape? See, here we are talking about it. Right? So here he is saying, at least this is true in tumultuous revolutionary ages like our own, but before he ever begins to write, he will have acquired an emotional attitude from which he will never escape. It is his job to discipline his temperament, but if he escapes from his early influences altogether, he will have killed his impulse to write. Right? So he's trying to say that it is very important to channelize our emotions. It is very important to understand our temperament and to mend it there and then. Otherwise, the people who are motivated to write due to their emotions, they would never write, right? The impulse to write will be killed, right? Hence, the answer here will be, let's see the options. So the options here are these. If the writer escapes from early impulse, he will lose his urge to write, be unable to imagine creatively, be able to converse with imaginary characters, be able to influence others. So we know all of these are not what we are talking about. We are talking about the urge to write because this was directly mentioned after the statement. Right? I hope this is clear to everyone. Okay, so I hope the passage 1 is clear to everyone. Now we are moving on to passage 2. Right? Next, education is not the amount of information that is put into your brain and runs riot there, right? Undigested all your life. So we must have life building, man making, character making, assimilation of ideas. What is assimilation? What is assimilation? A blend, right? A blend of ideas. If education were identical with information, the libraries are the sages in the world and encyclopedias are the rishis, right? So getting by heart the thoughts of others in a foreign language and stuffing your brain with them and taking some university degree, you consider yourself educated? Is this education, right? What is the goal of your education, right? Is this education? What is the goal of your education? Open your eyes and see what impetus carry a pitiless cry for food is rising in the land of Bharata, proverbial for its food, right? Will your education fulfill this want? Now, here by reading the first passage itself, we get to know, here we are questioning what education is, right? And what education should be, right? This is what we are questioning. We want that education by which character is formed, strength of mind is increased, the intellect is expanded, and by which one can stand on one's own feet. What we need to study, independent of foreign control, different branches of the knowledge that is our own, and with it the English language and Western science, we need technical education and all else that will develop industries so that men, instead of seeking for service, may earn enough to provide for themselves and save against a rainy day. Right? What does save against a rainy day mean? That people are able to stand up even in difficult situations, right? The end of all education, all training should be man-making. The end and aim of all training are to make the man grow. The training by which the current expression of will are brought under control and become fruitful is called education. So this is where education has been defined, right? Now, what our country now wants are muscles of iron and nerves of steel, gigantic wills which nothing can resist, which can penetrate into the mysteries and secrets of the universe and will accomplish their purpose in any fashion, even if it meant going down to the bottom of the ocean, meeting death face to face. There is only one method of attaining knowledge. Now see, I will underline a word which is very important for you, because this is an extreme statement, right? And we know that we have to underline any such extreme statement. So there is only one method of attaining knowledge. It is by concentration, right? The very essence of education is concentration of mind. From the lowest to the highest man, all have to use the same method of attaining knowledge. The chemist who works in the laboratory concentrates on elements to analyze them. Knowledge is acquired by concentration, right? So in the beginning we started questioning what is education, then we defined education, then we talked about India specifically, right? And in the end we talked about how concentration is the only key to attain knowledge, right? So now, according to the author, we need to study what? Take a look at it. If you want to screenshot it, you can screenshot it. Okay, so the answer would be, he has talked about English language, he talked about technical education, he also talked about Western science as important, and the answer is D here, right? Because all of these are clearly mentioned, right? Now, moving ahead, according to the author, which among the following is key to attain knowledge? It's very easy, concentration of mind. Right? This is what is written in the last few lines, and this is what is the answer. Which of the following words is related to the word assimilation? Okay, you tell me. Integration, adjustment, acclimatization. What should be the answer? What should be the meaning of the word assimilation? Think about it. You can type down the answer in the chat box. Okay, so here the answer would be, integration means wherein two or more things are combined together, right? Adjustment means where you settle down for something that you have never thought of, or when you settle down for something, that is adjustment. Then acclimatization also means settling down for a new idea or something new. Right? So two answers cannot be the correct answer. Integration also talks about the same thing, hence the answer will be all of the above. Right? I hope this is clear. Now, education as described by the author means what? What does it mean? Information, library, or degrees? Think about it. What does it mean? The answer is none of these, because education doesn't mean information. Libraries and degrees he has clearly negated. right? So the first one, we do not have enough facts to support it, and for the last two, he has clearly said that these do not mean education. I hope this is clear. Now the next question, as per the author, the aim of the education should be, think, to help a person build his or her character, to help a person earn his or her living, to help a person develop his or her intellect, and all of the above. Try to remember what all did we do? Okay, so in the passage he said, in order to build a character, yes of course. In order to build a livelihood, yes of course. In order to build his intellect, yes of course. So if all are there, the answer will be D, that is all of the above, right? And that is the correct answer, right? Now, let's just move ahead to the 12th question. According to the author, the country wants what? Let's just go back to the point and see what the country wants. Okay. Okay, what our country wants now, wants are muscles of iron and nerves of steel, gigantic wills which nothing can resist, which can penetrate into the mysteries and secrets of the universe and will accomplish their purpose in any fashion, even if it meant going down to the bottom of the ocean, meeting death face to face. So here they are basically talking that we want wills of the people, strong wills, right? So what will be the answer? Answer will be A, that is massive willpower, right? So the answer will be A, right? I hope this is clear. Now, let us come up to the next passage, which is passage 3. Alright, I'll quickly go through it. Punctually at midday, he opened his bag and spread out his professional equipment, which consisted of a dozen cowrie shells, a square piece of cloth with obscure mystic charts on it, a notebook, and a bundle of Palmyra writing. His forehead was dazzling with sacred ash and vermilion. What is vermilion? Vermilion क्या होता है? What is vermilion? What is vermilion, guys? Alright. So what is vermilion? Ash. His forehead was dazzling with sacred ash and vermilion. The tika that you put on your forehead, that is vermilion, right? And his eyes sparkled with sharp abnormal gleam. What does gleam? Gleam is sparkle, which was really an outcome of a continual search look for customers, which his simple client took to be a prophetic light and felt comforted. Prophetic means something angelic, right? Something which is there from the God, from a prophecy made, right? Then, light and comforted. The power of his eyes were considerably enhanced by their position, placed as they were between the painted forehead and the dark whiskers which streamed down his cheek. What are whiskers? Whiskers are mustaches, right? The hair of the mustaches, right? Now, so even a half-wit eye would sparkle in such setting. People were attracted to him as bees are attracted to the cosmos of dahlia stalks, right? He sat under the boughs of a spreading tamarind tree. What is tamarind? What is tamarind? It is imli, right? Tamarind tree, right? Which flanked a path running through the town hall park. It was a remarkable place in many ways. A surging crowd was always moving up and down this narrow road, morning till night. A variety of trades and occupations were represented all along its way. Medicine sellers, sellers of stolen hardware and junk, magicians, and above all, an auctioneer of cheap clothes who created enough din all day to attract the whole town. Right? Din means he used to make a lot of noise in order to attract many people. So next to him, in vociferousness, came a vendor of fried groundnut who gave his ware a fancy name each day, calling it Bombay ice cream one day, and on the next day, Delhi almond, and on the third, Raja's delicacy, and so on and so forth. And people flocked to him, that is, people came in groups all together, right? Flocked to him, a considerable portion of this crowd died before the astrologer too. So the astrologer transacted his business by the light of a flare which crackled and smoked up above the groundnut heap nearby. So here we are talking about how an astrologer who used to sit on the road, a busy road where near the town hall, used to conduct his business. So the he that we were talking about in the first passage has been defined here in the second last line, wherein we have used the word astrologer. I hope this is clear to you all. Firstly, we have described how does he look like, right, and how the people used to be, how the people used to flock all together to him, right, and what all were the things near him. This is what the passage is talking about. Let's just see now. Which among the following is the word for the phrase bright and colorful in an impressive way? What will be the answer? Bright and colorful in an impressive way. So this is a vocabulary based question. Okay, what is it? So bright and impressive will be dazzling. Mystic is something which is angelic, something which seems unreal, right? Flare and sparkle are somewhat the same, right? So this is what the answer is, that is dazzling. Now, which among the following is not a trade or occupation represented in the pathway running through the town hall? First is magician, second is medicine seller, then auctioneers of cheap bag, and last one, sellers of stolen hardware. Which of the following he has not talked about in his writing? Think about it. The answer is the auctioneers of cheap bag. He did not talk about C, right? So this was again a fact-based question. Who among the following used names like Bombay ice cream? This was very easy, right? Who used to do that? The groundnut seller. He used to name his groundnuts with new names, right? He used to give new names to his groundnuts so that the people would come and see what exactly is he talking about, right? And apparently to attract the customers. Which among the following is the meaning of the expression vociferous? Think about it. What will be the answer? Okay. Expressing opinions or feelings in a loud and confident way. Second, words that are spoken or sung to have a magical effect. Then, willing or prepared to do something or to hang about aimlessly. The answer here is expressing opinions or feelings in a loud and a confident way, right? Voice, which is loud and clear, there you use vociferous, right? Got it? Is that clear to everyone? Now, moving ahead. When did the astrologer usually start his day's business? This we have already talked about in the passage, and it is very easy. It is again a fact-based question. Okay, so it was the first few words in the passage. It were punctually at midnight, right? Then, what was considered as a prophetic light by the simple clients of the astrologer? We talked about it while the writer tried to explain how did the astrologer look like. So what will be the answer here? Think about it. The answer is the sparkling eyes of the astrologer with abnormal gleam. It seemed as if his eyes sparkled just because he had something magical in them, right? Next, passage 4. The right kind of education consists in understanding the child as he is without imposing upon him an ideal of what we think he should be. Now, a philosophical type of passage it seems, right? Now, so to enclose him in the framework of an ideal is to encourage him to confirm which breeds fear and produces in him a constant conflict between what he is and what he should be. And all inward conflicts have their outward manifestations in society. If the parent loves the child, he observes him. He studies his tendencies, his moods, and his peculiarities. It is only when one feels no love for the child that one imposes upon him an ideal, for then one's ambitions are trying to fulfill themselves in him, wanting him to become this or that. If one loves not the ideal but the child, then there is possibility of helping him to understand himself as he is. Ideals, understanding his student and dealing with them, ideals are convenient escape, and the teacher who follows them is incapable of understanding his students and dealing with them intelligently. For him, the future ideal, that what should be, is far more important than the present child. So here a very important aspect has been talked about, which is that the teachers who believe that in a certain manner a child has to be perfect, or the child has to be somewhat like this, is where the teacher is failing. Why? Because he's not trying to understand what the present condition or what the child currently is like, right? So now, the pursuit of an ideal excludes love, and without love, no human problem can be solved. If the teacher is of the right kind, he will not depend on a method, but will study each individual pupil. In our relationship with children and younger people, we are not dealing with material devices that can be quickly repaired, but with living beings who are impressionable, volatile, sensitive, afraid, and affectionate. And to deal with them, we have to have great understanding, the strength of patience and love. When we lack these, we look to quick and easy remedies and hope for marvelous and automatic results. If we are unaware, mechanical in our attitudes and actions, we fight shy of any demand upon us that is disturbing and that cannot be met by an automatic response. And this is one of our major difficulties in education, right? So this is how they have clearly mentioned what is the major difficulty in education, and how the teacher's perspective of what a child should be actually leads to this problem, right? According to the passage, why do we look for quick and easy remedies and hope for marvelous and automatic results? You can go back to the passage and read through it. Okay, so I'll just give you the answer here. Because children are impressionable, volatile, sensitive, and affectionate. But here we are not talking about that. Here the answer would be because we lack understanding, patience, and love, right? So according to the passage, why do we look for quick and easy remedies? Because these are the things which we are lacking. That is why we want quick remedies, right? Hence the answer should be D. What does the passage highlight as the quality of a parent who really desires to understand his child? What are the qualities of the parent who really desires to understand his child? Think about it. What was the answer? Read the statement. The answer is they observe and study the tendencies, mood, and peculiarities of the child, which is clearly mentioned in the passage. So this is again a fact-based question. Okay, next. What is the antonym of the word volatile? What is volatile? Write down the meaning of the word volatile in the passage. Alright. So the word here are stable, steady, and constant. Let's say in the paper you don't know the meaning of volatile. If you know the meaning of these words, you might be knowing that they all mean the same. Hence the answer will be all of the above. Right? It was that easy. Right? Now moving ahead. Which of the following currently reflects the intention of the author of the passage? Now reflecting the intention of the author, somewhat or the other, asks you about the main idea of the passage. Think about it, or the author's argument here. The education, I'll just start reading them. I'll start from option D. Parents and teachers should work together collectively to guide a child on what he or she should do as per their ambitions. Okay. The teacher should focus on how a child should be according to his or her methodology, hope, or expectation. We are clearly against this. So this is something against, and this should not be what the author is trying to say. Right? Then, true education should be governed by a tendency to conform a child to our ideals? No. This is also not what the author is trying to tell us. Right? And the last one, the right kind of education of a child cannot be without love, care, and understanding. Yes, this is the answer. Right? Is that clear? Now, moving ahead to question number 23. In light of the above passage, what will be the result of forcing a child to conform to the framework of an ideal? What will be the result if you are forcing a child to become ideal? Okay. It will create confusion and fear in the child. It will make the child an ideal child. No, we are not saying that. It will discourage the child. Not clearly it is mentioned that the child will get into a conflict with what? It is incomplete, right? And the answer left is B. That it will create confusion and fear in the child, which is also supported by the facts given in the passage. Now, 24th question. According to the author, what should be the attitude of a right kind of a teacher? This is very easy. We have talked about it and it is very easy for you to answer. They should not empathize with the students, not at all. They should use modern and scientific methods of teaching. Here we are not talking about the methods of teaching at all, right? They should focus on studying each student individually. They should instill great ideals in the student. No, we are not talking about instilling great ideals. Rather, we are saying you should respect the individuality of every child, right? All right. So I hope you guys have understood how we solve the questions and how we try to understand the passages, right? अगर किसी को कोई doubt है, कोई confusion है, please write down in the chat box, right? I will be more than glad to help you guys out, right? And with this, we'll end the main idea questions and the main idea as a topic itself. And in the next class, I'll come up with a new topic, right? So please stay connected. Please ask your doubts and I will make sure I clear all your doubts. With this, I'll rest the class here and I'll see you in the next class. Take care.